Hi, and welcome back to the Ascension Playground. My name is Ursie, and I'm here today on the playground with Robbie. Hi, Robbie.
Hi, Ursie. How are you?
I'm good. Long time no see. Ah,
Well, this is the second in a three-part video series, and today we're going to learn a little bit more about Ursie. And we have a couple of questions, and they're going to parallel the questions that Ursie asked me. And in the process, we can hopefully understand Ursie a little bit better and know a little bit more about her.
yay. So how would we like to bring in an animal to help us in our little journey? Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Oh, and here it comes. It's Colette Baron Reed's Spirit Animal Oracle card deck, right? I love this because animal energy is just so much fun to play with. So Robbie, to pull a card, I'm going to need some help. We'll knock out any old energy and breathe in. Show us the energy for the animal that would like to guide us in our conversation today with Robbie and I on the playground. Which animal would like to join Robbie and I today? Which animal would like to join Robbie and I? And I feel like pausing here. Okay, so the animal that wants to join us today is either the top or the bottom. I'm sensing top. Let's see who wants to play. Oh my gosh. Brown bear spirit, number 9. Take time out. You know, on the playground with all these potential cards, this brown bear has been showing up for me. Taking time out, and its message, really, I should probably know it by heart. There's time to act and a time to focus your attention on patient strategizing. Brown bear signals that you are best served by foregoing hard work toward your goals at this moment and instead taking the time out to meditate. Oh my goodness, thank you, brown bear, for reminding me over and over. Let me go right here. You know, Robbie, the name Ursula means little bear. Did you know?
I didn't know that. Yeah, maybe you could tell us where you were born. What was your culture?
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, Ursula is very Germanic, right? It's like, when I was a kid, I just wanted to be called like Katie or Annie. But I got Ursula. And later it became the name.
Why was that unusual relative to where you were born?
My goodness. Well, first of all, my mom is Chinese and my dad was from Ohio, German. And so I have a sister named Hildegard. So
Oh no.
Actually, okay, I'll take Ursula. But it means little bear. And it's associated with the constellation, the Little Dipper. So how did I get this name? I think my dad was crazy. At the time of my birth, there was an actress named Ursula Andress. Not Undress, but Andress. So, I don't know what he was thinking, but from a soul level, we're the ones as spirit whispering in the ear of our mothers and fathers, like, hey, name me this. So I really can't blame them. But I was born in Hawaii, and so I have aloha spirit. But as a military family, we moved quite a bit. But I grew up mostly in San Diego. San Diego, yay! So brown bear, thank you, thank you. I don't know about you, but I am so active in my mind and I love moving around and doing. I'm the kind of personality that doesn't like to sit still. So like, someone's trying to watch the football game. Can you just sit down? I know, I gotta clean, I gotta move this.
So that's kind of interesting. In Native American tradition, there is the notion that the bear is a shapeshifter. And in fact, if a bear is going to get into a fight with another bear, he brings up an energy from deep in his abdomen and brings that up through his body, through his throat. And in the process, he metaphysically transitions and transforms to something that's much more fierce than he really is.
Wow.
So maybe you're on a path of constantly transforming, constantly shifting.
I'll sit with that.
But at any rate, um, yeah, so maybe you can tell us. Obviously, you're a spiritual person, you're on a spiritual path, you're interested in all things metaphysical. And I would be hard pressed to name a book that you haven't read or to cite an author that you hadn't heard about. So I'm constantly amazed at some of the things that you will bring up. So how did you get onto this path?
Well, I'd love to answer that. I think Brown Bear is just asking me to say one more thing. You know, for so long, I've just been absorbing material and loving it and just feeding in my cave. And it wasn't until you helped me move out with a gentle shove, like, let's go talk with Danny Shea as my guest. And I'm like, okay. So it's this idea of coming out of the cave after all this digestion, you know, how it hibernates and then it's time. So thank you, Brown Bear. So when it's time beyond meditation to come forward with an Ascension Playground, which has been on my heart for 2 years, but I didn't know how to build the structure until you and Jimmy came in. And so through a triangle of support, Robbie, Ursie, and Jimmy were coming forward in this sharing. So back to your question, how did I get on the spiritual path? For those who know me and my family of origin, I should say my siblings, they always pointed to me as being the weird one. And I took that personally growing up. I was the second eldest of 7 children. So I'd always say, well, respect your elders, right? But my older sister is 11 months older. And so for 1 month every year, I could be the same age as her. So, but the spiritual, I just was always drawn to Christmas music. I would ride my bicycle and sing Alleluia, doing a newspaper delivery route. You know, I was working hard early, and there was always, like, my favorite time of year really was Christmas, but I never understood all the commercialization. It was about the story of the birth of Jesus. And so raised Catholic, military, biracial, San Diego.
Well, it sounds like your family of origin did not share kind of your sense of spirituality. And I find that in doing readings with different people, they found themselves, incarnating into families that may not have been the most enlightened people. And of course, there's a reason why they incarnated where they did. But it sounds like perhaps you didn't feel as connected with your family, at least on that level.
Well, I knew I was the odd one. However, you know, when you start the path of choosing to follow what you love, whether it's singing from your heart while you're on a bicycle, and my sister saying, shut up, you're tone deaf. You know, we'd have to all, like 9 of us go into a pew at church, right? Like took up the whole pew. And my sister would like, oh, you stop singing so loud. But there was something about the glory of creation that's been in me. And yes, you're right. As I got older, I chose the path of, in college, art and theology. So I was going to be a missionary. And then I went to Florence, Italy for a year. And all things changed when I realized, you know, it didn't make sense. we got to go to Israel and explore different cultures. And I just love different languages and people. So why is it that they're not going to heaven? It just didn't make sense to me. So I did follow this path and then started, college and then working and then having a family. But it wasn't until my youngest daughter had a health issue where I said, you know what? They gave her a label. They called her autistic. And I had her when I was 40. Don't do the math yet, but yeah, so it was like that really kind of lined up my whole focus. Everything stopped, and nothing was more important than trying to figure out how to provide her with care so that she could grow her brain. And so that diagnosis from Stanford really pushed me into okay, how to fix this. And so my husband and I, we just kind of stopped and learned all things about autism. And then you find out that the hospitals are guessing, the specialists don't really know. Then they called it Lyme disease. And then they called it all kinds of other stuff. So all this protocol, we did ABA therapy. And so it's her, the youngest of our children, that really informed a clearer focus of my spiritual path. Suddenly it wasn't like, oh, isn't this fun and interesting for me? It's like, how do we move forward to help support her?
Mm-hmm.
And then today I'm happy to report that I think they got the diagnosis wrong. It's more artistic, not autistic. Like, to embrace that we're all different. And so families who have received diagnoses of autism, it's like, it's how do we reframe something so beautiful and different, as I was in my family of origin. I was the different one. But I don't know if that answers your question, but that really focused me in on health concerns, not for myself so much, but for my daughter.
Yeah, and I can easily imagine if you're looking at different healing modalities, that you would begin to expand into, some what we now call alternative medicine, some alternative paths, alternative modalities, many of which are energy related, and that would begin to kind of move you forward on that spiritual path.
Yeah.
And what
Suddenly I
is,
didn't care. I didn't care suddenly about what other people thought. It
well,
was following my own inner compass. I was like, and it's funny because I thought I was trying to get answers for her, but along the way, this whole dashboard opened up, this multi-dimensional metaphysical dashboard, Robbie. And I was like, whoa.
yeah, I can definitely see that the lid came off the top of the box at that moment in time, and you began to expand your own consciousness and explore, kind of the greater nature of not only your being, but kind of the world, the universe that we live in.
Yeah, I think just to wrap that question up, it was more like, if you're too afraid to do something for yourself, like I was too afraid, the things I'm talking about today would be heretical. My father would be like turning, green, and, he did excommunicate me twice because of the things I was talking about. He didn't want to hear about the born again movement. He didn't want to hear about the cult of XYZ. And so I came in very different to what his Roman Catholic belief systems were. And so he couldn't afford to have me part of the family. So in fact, before he excommunicated me, he asked me to please go talk to a priest and write my father. He wanted me to write a term paper on, get this, transubstantiation. I'm like 11 going, huh? The changing of the bread into the body of Christ, the wine into the blood of Christ. He thought that me doing a term paper, he could reach my mind and say, this is what's true. And trying to get the priest to tell me that's what's true. But I didn't buy the narrative fully. It's like, okay.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he just wanted to bring you back into the fold. You had strayed.
Did not work. But I got to tell you, when you accept the label of artist, it's almost like an umbrella or permission slip I give myself. Like,
Mhm.
well, of course she's crazy. She's an
I know.
artist.
Yeah, she's just another crazy artist on the fringe.
And I live near Santa Cruz, so that's even crazier. But see, I'm not like coming out as a professional today, though I did work in corporate, and they always asked, why are you here? When they found out who I really was, how did you get in? Funny. Yeah, well, there you go. Here I am.
As you expanded your path and your reality, what are some of the tools that you picked up in terms of being able to help your daughter, perhaps being able to heal yourself possibly from your family of origin?
Wow. I think I'm just tuning into that. And what's coming up from my heart was something that sounds too simple. The magic elixir for me, and the tool that the ambrosia that I try to drink daily, is this just sitting well with myself. It's this self-care and self-love. It's not this heroic, super-powered mom that's gonna protect her child, and because there's a total of 6 kids in a blended family, and then grandma was living with us. So it's not even that. It was like, stop the madness, stop the busyness, Ursie, and just sit with this idea that I have a place at the table, that there's some chair at this table of God, of Source, that was specifically designed for me. Like, in some way, my little drop of quintessence is helping with this orchestra of humanity. And I have to continually to remind myself that, because it's like, it's a hard lesson, self-care and self-love. And I know he's like, are you kidding me? It's like, no, behind the curtains is someone who's still trying to go, it's okay. You have a right to be here. You might be different. You might be a little strange, and you might be definitely not in the social norms of society. And I think differently and I act differently. And that's okay. There's a place for that.
Yeah. It is.
You didn't know who came into dinner, did you?
Well, the important thing, of course, is that you have come out and you're sharing the light with the world. And so, in the course of the readings that I do with many people, I see any person's path, any person's purpose as being a very layered, a very complex thing. There's life lessons, there's purpose. And ultimately, we have to kind of move through all of it kind of at the same time. It's a very complex. I think if people were to reflect on the complexity of their lives, they would say, oh my gosh, look what I just came through. And at that moment in time, too, I would hope that they remember and can appreciate how magnificent they are. So, and I think that remembering your magnificence would also be part of your self-care. So, and clearly that's one of your big lessons.
Thank you. It's kind of like going to Baskin Robbins and looking at the 31 flavors and knowing that you're not one of the 31. It's a whole other flavor that's come on. And now I can kind of embrace myself as, okay, what if I'm one of those early imaginal cells that's a forerunner to what's to come in the future? Because I have an innate gift sometimes to shish kebab through an intuitive emotional capacity to get to answers and clarity pretty quickly, or I can synthesize lots of different esoteric material and go bam and present something. So this is my hidden superpower. Didn't you know? Shish kebab.
Well, that's one of them. That's one of them. And of course, your art and the energy and emanations of your art are clearly another one of your great powers and great gifts. And
Oh, thank you. It's so funny because when you have a talent, sometimes you can take that for granted. Like I paint every day. I love painting. But if you're going to ask me a question like, what do I love doing when no one else is looking? Um, I'm watching Korean rom-coms right now. I had no idea there's so many on Netflix. And I got stuck on these because there's an astrologer named Christopher Renstrom, and he's like, I'm watching these Korean rom-coms and I'm hooked. They're like 16 episodes, 20 episodes, and you're like binging. But I asked myself, what's underneath that? Why am I so enchanted? And it brings me back to my childhood where I was reading fairy tales from around the world, feeling like I'm part German. So there's the Baden-Baden, the Black Forest Grimm's fairy tales, which were very grim. They're not Disney-fied, but there's this enchantment with story. And if you ever go on Netflix and watch these Korean rom-coms, there's a certain musical poetry, and you're always rooting for happily ever after, or that love will prevail. And I think at heart, within my paintings and within my life, I'm a romantic. Didn't you know?
yeah. Well, what is the story of your art? How has that evolved?
Well,
I mean,
thanks.
clearly, I love your expression of this notion of story, and obviously, you got hooked into these Korean films.
I mean, they're unending. My eyes get dry. You know, I have to like tell myself, okay, only one more, and then one more. But the artwork, for me, it's trying to stay like the Rumi poet said about being like the reed for God, like staying hollow within to allow the spirit to work through you. And so, yes, I am a professional painter, and I've done figurative work where I'm working with relational dynamics of emotional engagement. And I'm also working with abstract energy fields in art, so it's purely abstract. But then since 2015, Robbie, all I'm doing is creating these sacred geometries of this is a unity star with a rainbow. And so my critic eye will say, what are you, someone from Woodstock? Like, what are you really, like, you're going to give up this professional brand of, oh, I'm the artist. And didn't you know, like, I got called out as the one to watch by this top New York curator. And I'm like, don't watch. Don't watch. But here's what I learned though. I learned that, you know, we can paint like Monet from the eye and the mind, and Monet, what an eye. Or you can paint from the heart like the expressionists did and look at these beautiful narratives of human expressions and full pathos. Or when you go deeper into the hara, to our navel area, that is the language of the soul. And the soul speaks in terms of number and geometry. Did you know? So then it gave me permission, like, okay, it's okay. I'm just going through the mind, the heart, and I'm in the hara. But who knows, like a Taurite, I might come back out to the figure again through the mind, the heart, and the hara. That's probably a lot of info for you, but.
Well, it's a synthesis. I had an old college art professor. You might not know this, but I had to take 2 years of art every morning at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Uh-oh.
And sometimes we worked in all different mediums. And sometimes we'd have to work with nude models and that kind of a thing.
Oh, not the nudies.
Yeah. Well, at 8 o'clock in the morning, when it was like 5 below zero, I would have preferred to stay in bed and dream about nude.
At least you didn't have to get nudie, right? So, the poor models.
As opposed to driving 10 miles to school, trudging through the snow and showing up at an art class. But anyway, this professor told me that art was an exploration of meaning, and that kind of
Oh,
resonated with me. Uh, and it kind of gets you off the hook for some of the tangents that you want to explore.
the many tangents.
But on the other hand, I can see a great deal of meaning. I can see an evolution in your art.
Mm.
So what would you say you're exploring in your art in terms of meaning?
Well, thanks to a reading I received from you, that was a pivotal shift in how I viewed myself and what I'm contributing to society. Um, these three questions that came through the reading of where do we come from? What are we? And where are we going? And that seems to help embody decades of my inquiry and painting. And the paintings really just serve as mirrors for me, like that's where you're at now. But it's always this constant question, do you want to stay in the box? And so making other people feel comfortable, or do you want to keep exploring? And so even talking about stars and galaxies and star nations, I'm just enchanted by the bigger stories. And so, but see, it always comes down to, do I love myself enough to continue the exploration? Because my personal family, my deepest, dearest relationships, I would get these senses like, what are you doing? The W word would come up, like, is this witchcraft? Are you
Mhm.
are you doing like symbols? Like you start doing a 5-pointed star and people get nervous. It's like, oh my God, it's the Vitruvian man. We are human bodies, one point are 2 arms and 2 legs, that's 5 points, and you see 5 points in flowers. So how could a 5-pointed star always be associated with witchcraft? So that's one of the biggest, being female and doing symbols that might make, in particular, men in my life uncomfortable. Like, what would the neighbors say? I had a doctor come to my art studio, just drop into my home studio. It's like, what are you doing in there? I'm like, okay, that's just where he's at. I'm not, I'm just being me, and I have no ill intent in my heart. And I have to keep honoring myself, like, regardless of what the neighbors think, my family, or even my husband, I have to be true to myself. So I think that's a long way of answering your question, but
Well, it's a big life lesson not to let someone or anyone really define us. And so you have managed to kind of step through. That's a hoop you've stepped through. And from your story, I know it was a difficult one.
I agreed to this setup. I know it's like, it's how the tip of my spear got even sharper, because that crystal clarity of this is who I am and this is who I'm not ready to live someone else's life to make them feel comfortable. I really, since I'm almost 60, I figure, if not now, when? Like, when am I going to just be myself? And so coming out with this Ascension Playground actually is one huge step for me to say it's okay to be seen and to be heard and to share with other kind of crazy people like Robbie. It's not normal. This is not normal.
Not normal. That's true. That's true. Well, Cryan has kind of he has suggested that as well. In response to this question, why did we incarnate into the families of origin that we did when they appear to be so different from us? He said it makes perfect sense because steel hardens steel. And so you have had to at least reinforce yourself to the degree that you could move beyond that, move beyond this notion of someone defining us. So,
Well, maybe later on the playground, I'll feel comfortable to share some of the art that's not normal with you, if you want. You want to see some not normal art?
well, I've seen some of your art, and it's a range of different types of art, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So it's
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you. I'm glad we're friends, because sometimes I do need to hear that, because it says we've built a bridge of appreciation and understanding, you don't get the hatchet or the excommunication if you say or do the wrong thing. So thank you, because I'm still learning how to trust in being myself. But this idea of creating divine emanations of love and being a divine emanation of love in all of my humanity, in all of my beautiful imperfection. I mean, here I am today now, and this is okay to sit in that space. So thank you for this time, Robbie, and can't wait to have Jimmy come join us.
Yeah, well, it's a great message, and thank you so much for sharing what you have about yourself, about your path, and your experiences.
Oh, well, thank you.
And so,
And Brown Bear for joining us. I'm telling you, that bear magic.
you've been coming up a lot lately.
Time to meditate. And I think in meditation, we do start getting to that place of that's the point where I can embrace my higher self, source energy, and the full potential of what might be next. I know those are big words, but if I just slow myself down to go inward, I know that there's more coming. So thank you, my friend. See you soon. Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Bye,
I
Robbie.
know. Take care.